big focus on NDTV remains the horrible train crash in Odisha's Balasore district. Now remember, over 288 people have died in the crash and 900 people, at least 900 people are injured, many among them seriously injured. They're there in a hospital near the Balasore district. I'm joined by my colleague Saurabh Gupta live on the broadcast. Saurabh has been on the ground since early morning. Saurabh, take us through what's the situation on the ground. Of course, now the focus is on clearing the tracks because, as pointed out by the NDRF earlier as well, that the rescue operations are more or less have been concluded. What's the situation on the ground?
Well, obviously, as the railways begin clearing the tracks, you can see the impact of that collision even more. Because if you see, if my camera person can zoom in here, just look at this mangled coach below the crane. The yellow, arm is of the arm of the crane, and this mangled coach. This mangled coach, of course, is what the crane was trying to remove right now. And that is, of course, something. And if you see the coach next to it, the coaches have gone into each other. So anyone who's sitting there or sleeping there would have perhaps been trapped inside. So now, of course, after they've removed it partly, they're again looking to see if they can find more bodies inside which are intact, and then if they can retrieve them and send them for post-mortem or whatever. Because dignity in death is also something that obviously these rescue and missions look at. So this is something that they're doing at this point. But again, look at this side. You can see this green coach, the sleeper class coach, completely on top of another coach. The engine of the Coromandel Express on top of a goods train. The pillars or the poles that hold up the overhead electrification wires also completely uprooted. So at this point, really, the railways' focus is to try and clear at least one track, which they're trying to do at this point. One track they will clear, and then, of course, the rest they can slowly start. But at this point, their focus is at least clearing one track, which they're trying to do at this point, as you can see. So obviously, this is one of India's worst railway accidents. 3 trains piling up is something that's unheard of. Earlier, we've heard of bad accidents, including, let's say the Gaisal railway accident in West Bengal, in which the Brahmaputra Mail and the Awadh Assam Express were involved. Or, the Ganeshwari, in Jhargram, again in West Bengal, in which, the Ganeshwari coaches had derailed, and then, of course, a goods train rammed into it. But here, you had, the Coromandel Express derailing, ramming into a goods train, stationary goods train. And then, because the coaches were displaced and it infringed on the other track, another train coming from the other side also rammed into these coaches, and then that train also derailed.
Right, Saurabh, what you're reporting actually shows the extent of the accident and the extent of the tragedy, but also talk to us about the rescue operations, because you were there on the ground when they were underway and you were privy to it all, really. So talk to us about the rescue operations. I mean, we all saw those visuals of the NDRF teams extricating body after body, and really rushing the injured to hospital, to a nearby hospital. Talk to us about the rescue operations and how they actually managed to retrieve bodies and rush the injured to a nearby hospital.
Well, when one talks about a rescue operation, one cannot forget the role of the Odisha government in this. Of course, the NDRF has done a stellar job. Of course, the other agencies, the ODRAF has done a good job. But Odisha has very strong SOPs in place. This is a state that's handled one crisis after the another. It's handled cyclones. So they have very good SOPs in place. So when something like this happens in Odisha, obviously look at the way they've distributed patients across Soro, Balasore, Bhadrak, and other places, and I believe even till Baripada. So that's the way they work, so that, the load is not on one hospital. So these SOPs are something that they've worked and tweaked and worked on over time, which is why now they have a system where the machinery kicks in and each part does its job. And that's why perhaps, this rescue and relief operation, I would say, was one of the better managed ones that I've seen because otherwise it can take months, sorry, I beg your pardon, not months, but at least a couple of days. But today is just 24 hours since the accident took place. In fact, it's now about 6, almost 7. Exactly around this time yesterday, the accident would have occurred here, and these trains would have rammed into each other. And in 24 hours, not only have you extricated most of the bodies, but also you're now already started work on clearing the tracks. So that's the kind of perhaps influence that Odisha has in terms of conducting rescue operations, and experience that Odisha has, and the expertise that the state has, which has also helped in the rescue and relief operations.